Good evening. Welcome Mugdha and Kajal. Very happy to have you here on this webinar today. And we have a lot of people listening to us. I can currently see the attendees still joining into our webinar. Perhaps we can just give it another minute for them, because we've started on time. We are exactly at 4. So maybe just give them a minute or two to join us. Meanwhile, how are you doing? How's the lockdown doing for you girls? How is it?
Kajal, you can answer that first.
I think both of us, actually, Mugdha's in Pune, and she's been a colleague. I've known her for a bit. We've been interestingly doing some things together. I'm from Mumbai, girls, and Apni city, from the BMN College city, and it's great for us at one end, because we've been at home, and there's been a lot of pivoting and a lot of things going on in the business and the home front. So it is an interesting story that I will say during the session. And of course, it's also sad that we are in a health crisis as one talks, and as caregivers, we need to be out there and rise to the front. So yeah, that's where it's at. And I'm so glad that this got us together as well. This lockdown has brought people together. So that's what I look forward to. Mugdha, on to you.
So for me,
from Pune.
I'm in Pune. I was a BMN batch 1996, I think. I now have
1999, darling, we are together.
Yeah, I know, right? So I have people in my team who are born in 1995. And I'm like, this can't be true. How can you be born in the year that I graduated? But how has the lockdown been for me? Well, one of the things that actually happened is, in the lockdown, a lot of people started focusing on their health, because they realized from all the statistics also that people who had poor internal health were the ones most at risk, right? So it kind of helped bring what I do at Thrive, what we do at Thrive, more to the forefront. So in that way, it's been good. It allowed for these amazing collaborations, right? Like Kajal and I, this is our second session together, and a lot of healthcare, healthcare professionals came together and collaborated. So there's this thing of competing with each other has completely evaporated. So I think that's like amazing that people are collaborating with this common vision of helping the entire general population with their health. That's something that's come. Personally, though, like if you follow my Facebook feed, you'll know that I protest big time against the lockdowns. But that's a conversation for another day. That's not for today. Otherwise, the lockdown has been good. I've always been self-reliant. So for me, not the household and managing that on my own was like no big difference. I just don't like the idea of having to be under house arrest because it was announced. So that's rebellious streak that Mala ma'am and Anu ma'am have anyway had to kind of deal with.
Well, guess what we have Mala ma'am here. Let me just see if I can invite her quickly to say hello to all of us.
Wow, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Mala ma'am, can you?
Hi girls, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Hello, ma'am.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Wonderful to see the three of you here. Yeah, and on behalf of Dr. Big thank you from BMN College. We're just looking forward.
We also have Anu ma'am here. I'm trying to loop her in as well. Anu ma'am.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Mala ma'am, we can hear you. Anu ma'am, I think you're muted at your end.
Thank you for taking up this initiative and really looking forward.
No, we are. I wouldn't have imagined being able to do this. So I am super grateful. Like,
Ma'am, it's an honor. It's an honor, truly.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, so,
I think let's
yeah, so go ahead,
begin
just waiting
with
to hear
our-
what you have to say.
Thank you.
I think we are full actually. So let's begin with the seminar why we're all here. So now before we start talking about what everyone wants to hear about, let's just Kajal, why don't you start with just a brief background and an introduction about yourself.
Thanks, Manisha. I do want to thank you very much for setting up this session for us and of course the VMN faculty. What do I say? It's been an interesting journey. I have not been a nutritional professional actually. I had economics honors, born and brought up in this city. Got married, a typical Gujarati family, and post my pregnancy, I was starting to look at the family health, my child that I was expecting, also the health of that, and being from a Gujarati family, again, a lot of clinical issues in the household itself. So I said, let me embark and take up the empower myself with the charge of taking, the whole family's health into my hands, and then take it on towards the rest of them. It so happened that, if I quickly put my journey in a capsule, then I started my nutrition studies at the age of 35. And that is when I had gone back to college. And of course, I'd gone to Sapphires earlier, where I didn't get the full understanding of clinical background, which is important. I'm a curious person by nature and very, very into biochemistry. So, started knocking many doors actually to be able to get a validated, accredited education. And that's where I landed up at BMN, and, very welcoming college. Totally understanding of the reasons why I wanted to take this up. And I went through the 4 years at BMN under the umbrella of Mala ma'am, Anu ma'am, of course Shilpa ma'am as a principal, and the entire faculty, nutrition faculty, worked with diligence, made sure no matter what happened, I burned the candle at both ends. My son was growing up very, very fast, and made sure that didn't hamper the family life or my studies. Moved on quickly to finish my graduation, did my diabetes education at SNDT, and then realized that if I can help so many, and I saw the gap in India, a population of 1 billion, where I felt that each individual needs to empower themselves with their own health. So started the business of consulting, and that business took on very well with word of mouth. And I don't know, Venetia, you can stop me where you want, but I'll quickly close that. Landed up with another startup related to products because of that experience. With a lot of mentors, started that startup, and right now it's called Plant Power. Truly understanding the importance of plant protein and plant-based lifestyles, which I wanted to champion and anchor in India. So that's where I'm at. I'm running 2 startups right now. One is a consulting and one is a product. One has got investment, the other one is self-funded, but I'll talk about it later. I'm thoroughly enjoying my journey. I have 2 small teams and it's doing great.
That's lovely to hear from you. Mugdha, can we please have can we have
sure.
you share your background, please?
So I chose nutrition like I said, I was 1996 batch, right? We graduated then. 96 or 99, Venetia? I think 99, right?
99. It's 99. Yeah, we passed out together, so I know.
So I picked nutrition at that time because I really wanted to like work with food, right? And I remember I had joined college like 15 days after official admissions had closed, and Shilpa ma'am was my aunt's friend, and I literally begged her that, you know, I know I'm late, but this is what I really want to do, and like take me into your college. I'm not doing anything else. And you know, the funny thing is, I was never one of these top students, right? I was never one of these rank holders. I like, we loved college. We had so much fun in college. We kind of got by in a lot of subjects, me and a couple of my friends. And that's why, like I said, I never imagined I'd be here, you know, so many years after graduation, talking about setting up your own business, because I didn't even come with that orientation. I just wanted to finish my graduation, and you know, the typical thing that's told to us, like, you know, finish studying and then get married and then have children, and that's the end of life kind of a thing. So that's where my orientation was. We actually like, in college we got our ID cards confiscated more number of times than I think like, that's where more of our energy and effort went, in getting our and then actually studying and like, you know, scoring really well. But what BMN gave me was this immense you know, self-confidence, and this it kind of helped me understand who I really was. And I think that's what BMN has done for a lot of us women over time. So my journey from there was like, okay, I finished my bachelor's, now I should do my master's. And then I just did my master's because I wanted to do my master's. And what happened after that is I started looking for jobs in the field of nutrition. And, you know, this was 2001. So the only kind of jobs that were available were gym kind of jobs, or like in hospitals, where you'd not really be doing clinical work, you'd just be in part of the, you know, the cafeteria work. And I did that for a couple of months, and I got really frustrated with the kind of work that was there. And I went to Anu ma'am and said, like, I don't like this. And then Anu ma'am was like, okay, there is a faculty position available here. Would you want to come back and teach? And I did that for a year and a half until I got married and moved to Hyderabad. And you know, after that again, there it was only VLCC. So I didn't really like this so much. Like, what is this field of nutrition? And I quit nutrition. Like, can you believe that? I was like, I'm going to shift out of this field. So I did XLRI, HR, and I moved into HR. So I was in HR for nearly 15, 16 years. I primarily worked with startups. So I would always, so I was Flipkart's first HR hire, for example, right? So I would work with startups because I loved that energy. What made me come back into nutrition, even before I became an entrepreneur, like running Thrive now, is my own health started like taking a downturn. Because when you're in corporate, you don't really have the opportunity to focus on your health so much. You're like, it's just long hours and it's crap food and it's like really bad lifestyle. So what happens to a lot of my patients now had happened to me. And I had, like, with pregnancy and everything, I'd gained 97 kg. So 2016 is when I got back into the world of nutrition, and I discovered this field called functional nutrition, which is what I practice now. From there, it was initially just about healing myself, and then I was able to kind of apply whatever I had learned to help other people heal. So I was initially just a single one woman show kind of a thing, right? I was just helping people, like being a consultant nutritionist. And then sometime in 2018, I developed this vision that I wanted to heal 1 million people through whatever knowledge I had, because I could see so many people were suffering, so many people were struggling with being able to understand what is required for their own health. And when that 1 million people vision came, that's when I realized I couldn't do it alone. I needed a team. I needed to do it with other people as well. Right? So that was the entire journey from doing it on my own to now setting up a company, hiring people, raising funding, and all of that. So we'll speak about the funding aspect later, but that was the journey, right? So it was from my own need to heal myself to healing a few people to now having this vision of 1 million people, and then needing a team to kind of solve. And then the office came in and all of that, right? So that's been my journey. But yeah, I would have never imagined in 1999 that you and I would be having this conversation. Like, if somebody would have told me that.
Oh yes, oh yes. You know, I so believe you. We knew each other in college. I mean, we knew each other a bit. So I do believe you. In fact, you won't believe this. Recently, one of my students actually shared with me a video, where Mala ma'am is clearly declaring how notorious I was. So yeah,
I think it was our
me and
batch, okay? Like,
yes, I believe so. I do. I will agree to that. Kajal, what did you do post college? Let us know.
I told you I've been a double graduate. You're talking about my nutrition studies, right? Yeah.
No, no. I mean, how was your journey?
Yeah, so I'll talk about the post nutrition aspect because I did earlier in my maiden life economics major, and that journey, I was in one of the top stockbroking firms in the country, working for a year before I got married. And the just like Mukta shared, the idea was that just work a little bit till you find someone, and then you get married and you can live your life on a bed of roses. And once I started studying back, actually, once I started coming back to BMN, and BMN is such a enriching, now when I think back about it, I was learning something every day. It was not like it was not like spaceship kind of stuff or any kind of tech stuff that I was learning, but it was very experiential learning by observing others, by observing the community, by the challenges that people face. Especially women, right? Most of the time we just it's ironical that I'm in the lockdown of a home, but most of the time we are confined to the four walls and we are not able to create or be creative with our lives. And at BMN, when I went back to college, it's different from Mugda's journey because it was a maiden experience for her. Whereas when I went back, I already had a family and a house to run, as a homemaker. And I realized that if I'm not going to be creative as an individual, not only for the financial satisfaction of being independent, but even for my own creative and mental satisfaction, I needed to do something. I needed to be purposeful. So when I was going through BMN, I was at it. I was constantly studying. And of course, I had a lot of fun time. Mala ma'am, I have been in those cabins also, in Shilpa ma'am's cabin many a times for the wrong reasons. But I don't want to get into that. But I'm kind of a rebel, right?
I think a lot of girls who are there right now are going to be relating to that.
Because as an individual, you want to stand for something, you want to express, and I felt that being a girls' college, it gave me much more power or much more feeling of oneness that I could say, hey, this needs to happen, or hey, that needs to happen, and I could anchor myself. Now, the fantastic part is that as soon as I did some internships, I knew that my own home environment was not feasible for me to be able to work always outside in another company or something like that. So I said, you know what? Let me start something on my own, as small as it is. It's something that can at least give me that satisfaction that I've done something productive out of the 24 hours of the day. And I think that's where being my own boss got anchored. It was immediately 1 year after graduation, Vinisha. And, it's such a great feeling, just being your own boss because you have, I won't say complete control. There's a lot of things that you'll probably see along the time that there's a lot of craziness that happens when you run your own business as well. There's a lot of highs and lows, but it makes you grow as an individual, and the benefit that you see yourself giving to society, it is out of the world. Luckily we are in a profession that helps. We are in a profession that helps, right? But even otherwise, just to be doing something. So I immediately made sure that I started the consulting. I got a website in place. Had my name out there in small groups because I knew I didn't want to get into a franchisee mode or any big kind of a thing. I wanted to prove myself to myself first. So I got the first 10 customers and I saw whether they are giving me 100. And that's what happened. The word of mouth, which I was talking about. and that kick-started the confidence in me and the business itself. So, I got a brand name, it's called KB Health. I kept it very boutique because that was the network I wanted to work with in a boutique fashion. When I say boutique, I mean small because my son was growing up and I wanted to keep it confined to only my choices. So I could actually choose that, hey, I want to take appointments 10, 12 at 2, and nobody could say anything about it because that was my time. Being your boss, that's one of the best things that it can be on your time if you like, but it's a lot of hard work. Mukta, I think you can come in and you can share this also, or maybe declare, unless you're leading a different kind of a life where we are not working 24/7. I feel we are working 48 hours a day, holding our own businesses. So it's not been just wow, but I feel great. I feel great that I did something that, failure or success, who knows? But I put in my best. Yeah, I'd like to stop at that and pass on.
What do you
Yeah.
think, Kajal? Do you think there is an ideal age to be your own boss? Is there an ideal age where, Mugdha, what do you say? I mean, what is your say on that?
So if you asked me, I will just say one line that I said the age that I started my business was 41. Okay, when I started. I wish I had started earlier. So maybe Mukta, you can speak more on it because I didn't have the ability or the skill sets then, you can come in.
Right. So for me, I think more than age, right? What is really important is, do you have the know-how or do you have the right skill set that it takes to really be an entrepreneur, right? And when I say that, it's not about having an idea that works. It's not about having a service that people want to buy, because without that, you wouldn't even have a business in the first place, right? But being an entrepreneur requires so much discipline. It requires so much, like you have to take such personal responsibility. You have to be accountable to so many stakeholders. And I think there's a function of being able to learn those skills. So my recommendation to somebody would be like, as soon as you graduate, I mean, if you want to start off, then it's great. You can start then. You'll just experience a lot of different challenges. Maybe give it about 4 or 5 years of working with someone who teaches you these fundamentals of, like, good work ethic. What does it really mean to be able to serve a client with stellar quality service? What does it mean to have a gold standard of service? So work with somebody so you develop those skills, and then in about 4 or 5 years, you would have the kind of maturity you would need to be able to launch off on your own with lesser failures and lesser setbacks. Because what happens with a lot of entrepreneurs is they start off with a lot of enthusiasm, and then they experience setback after setback because it takes time, and then they just think entrepreneurship is not for me, and then they give up on their hopes and dreams, and they start working full time. So their entire life goes into that. I would say that a reverse of that would be a better model, that you start off working for somebody, figure out the nuances, figure out what your strengths are, figure out what kind of partners you would need if you had to launch your own business, and then take it from there. So 30 would be a good age, is what I would say. Like, you finish your graduation, you finish learning whatever you want to learn in terms of your academics, and then you give yourself about 4 or 5 years to learn real world skills. Because what you learn in college, and luckily BMN is very, very different from other colleges, because you actually get to learn other skills apart from just your academics,
If
right?
you're
Like
age 60 and above, you're advised to stay in the house at all times.
No,
but yeah, like, see, for example, I did not know how to speak in front of an audience, and it was because of Mala ma'am's PD classes. I remember the first time she made us do a book review, I stood there and I cried in front of the entire class, and that skill wouldn't have developed. So BMN does offer that ability to develop these extracurricular, like, other aspects of your personality, but not all colleges do that. So it's important that you get exposed to real world working environments, so that you know what you're going to face when you're going to set up on your own. So you're not dejected and you're not disappointed, just to save yourself in heartbreak. Do that for 5 years. 30 would be a good age to kind of take off on your own, is my perspective.
Yeah, I actually would like to come in here and encapsulate what Mukta shared. I hear some background actually. But anyways, Mukta is so right in that. But let's say for a person who's like me and doesn't have the chance, for whatever reason or for whatever
book
background,
report பண்றத first year ஐதா presentation பண்றத அப்புறம் நான் அவளை motivate பண்ணி இப்போ அவளுக்கு பயம் எல்லாம் போய்
Hello.
yeah.
Hello. Yeah.
Yeah,
Kajal
Praneeta?
has been. Yeah. Can you repeat yourself? There's been a drop.
No,
Can you repeat
no,
yourself?
that's fine. Thank you for that. No, I was just sharing that Mugdha is absolutely right in sharing about getting the experience, because I see when I take CVs of younger professionals who come in, and they might not have had the experience, and they just come in fully new or fresh. There's a lot of difference when one has worked at a company for a long time, and I do completely buy that. But there are many out here, I'm sure, on this chat itself, who might not have, either the will, which I think they should start having, frankly, the Mugda's point of view. But let's say for whatever circumstantial reasons, right? But there is still a choice within your own setting to do something in the world today. I mean, the global, forget the COVID lockdown, it has just accelerated every kind of learning pathway that's out there. But even otherwise, post lockdown, one doesn't need to resign to their old ways of life, because today there's so much available to you. I mean, I was 15 years ago, I didn't have those platforms or opportunities, but you have to find your way. You have to keep on talking to people who are doing businesses, who have to find what are the challenges, what are the pitfalls, what are the strengths that one requires, but still find your way through. So there are options for anything today. So that's what I wanted to table.
What do you think? Why did you decide? That this is it. I want to be on my own. I want to start on my own. Why did that thought? What initiated or instigated that thought? Mugdha, maybe you can.
Oh,
Okay.
okay. I thought Kajal would take that. All right.
No,
So
but you can first.
You both have to share. We need both.
So,
of
So for me, Vinisha, honestly, I had spent nearly 15 years in the corporate world, right? And there came a point of time when I'd had enough of having to work on somebody else's. Like, that's the honest reason why I decided to become an entrepreneur. I just had enough of, like, sometimes when you work with larger organizations or even with startups, some policies, some things just don't make sense to you, and you have to do it because in the end it's the organization versus the individual. So I wanted to set up businesses differently. Like, it's not just about the nutrition coaching, right? It's about what does it really be. This is where my HR background comes in. I just wanted to run a company where people are honored and respected for who they are, people are valued for who they are, and it's not just like a cyborg kind of a thing that you just are another robotic piece in the entire machinery. So my desire to become an entrepreneur was from that perspective, that I really wanted to build a big business. I wanted to run a company differently. I wanted to be a gold star for raise the standard for how people are treated in organizations. I like that's really where it came from. And I was done with kind of following somebody else's orders and somebody else's rules, because at some point it started feeling like slavery to me, and like freedom is something that I value a lot. So that's really the trigger that made me think of being an entrepreneur, right? So even before Thrive started, this was way back in Toronto, I had started discovering probiotics. So I started actually making and selling kefir and kombucha from my own house in Toronto, because I wanted to see that without the umbrella of an organization, without that safety net of working for somebody else in exchange for the stability and security of a monthly salary, what is it that I could do as an individual, and did I have the courage to live like that, right? So did my existence on this planet, was it of value to enough number of people that my life would be supported? So that was the primary question, that was I offering enough value on this planet to enough number of people that I wouldn't have to worry about a monthly salary? And if I was doing something that was giving them something that was valuable, they would, like, you know, they would pay me something in return. So that's where the thought of being an entrepreneur came from. Like, can I offer enough value to a community? Can I offer enough value to the 7 billion people that are on this planet at some point of time? Can I offer enough value to people who might want to come and partner with me for my vision? That's where the entrepreneurial bug bit me. And this was way back in 2016. So I started off from there. Though my dad tells me that my first attempt at entrepreneurship was when I was 4 years old, and I had picked up a eucalyptus branch and I had decided to make a Vicks bottle factory out of that. So apparently I've been an entrepreneur since
Oh my.
I was 4. But like in the real world adult term, it was in 2016 when I was done working for somebody else, and I wanted to figure out what is it that I could offer to the world that would make them support my existence. Like that was where it started.
Okay, that's a lovely story, Mukta. It's a great endearing vision. So, for me, it's kind of started off, with that same thing that I carried throughout my life, which I've noticed as I've grown older and wiser, I hope, is that, I always carried this streak of we as individuals have the power in ourselves to be independent in many ways. And, it gives freedom. Independence gives a lot of freedom to thought also, not only to your routines or your personal life. And it also gives freedom in relationships, because my story is on a personal level where I have been part of a family of 4 siblings, where I've always seen that my mom has only worked till the time and continues to today for just what the family wanted, or what is it that is the priority of the family. And I always felt that my mom had so much potential. She's so creative today. I mean, she's so much better than me, but she never got the opportunities because maybe she never asked. And I see that if you don't ask, one doesn't get. I was very clear that when I got married, that I will do something that at least, is something that's satisfying to me, keeps me on a creative edge in life, where I feel that I've done something to add value to people's life. And also the fact that I wanted to leave the world a better place. To be honest, I don't want to sound like Miss Universe here. That's the most popular statement which takes away the trophy. But honestly, when my child started growing up, and I realized that everything that we do, and you're seeing with the COVID, how it impacts so many people around you. And I just wanted to, yeah.
When you began, did you kind of were you scared, or did you have any fears in mind that were questions?
Oh, absolutely. I was so nervous. I've had so much breakdown before I actually started the business.
I'd like you to share that a little bit.
Yeah,
because I think we all go through that.
Yes, the biggest challenge that I had was with my family. Though they've been extremely supportive, the whole question of the ask, where I had decided that I want to start something that's more serious. It was not on a flimsy note, just doing some freelancing, or, just, there, not there on call. Like Mukta said, the first thing that's required is discipline, and I'll be quite transparent to share that I've actually left my home. Vinisha, we did a trial session in the evening, in the morning today, and there were glitches at my tech level, right? I mean, I had to take a call. I have to be disciplined about this webinar. I had to come upstairs to my friend's house and make sure that the connectivity is right and the setting is right so I can do a professional webinar, you know. So that attitude shift where I might not be available all the time at home, you know, and I don't want to feel guilty about that either, that I have a son and he's growing up and you know, the mom is working, so what? I mean, in fact, I think the best gift that I got is when my son shared that, mom, the best thing that you could add value to and the quality is for yourself is to continue working, because I can see the peace of mind it gives you. Of course, it also makes me crazy often, but I did get very nervous. I did get very nervous to put in a snapshot, Vinisha, because it was all about even owning the money, right? That's something finance. Mugdha, I don't know how. I mean, you know, it's always nice being.
We'll come back to finance. We'll come back to finance. I can hear
the nervousness.
Yes.
Yeah, but the nervousness about finance, right? And if you're starting something on your own, you want to be having it standing on its own 2 feet eventually, right? You don't want to keep on borrowing, etc., from whoever. You want to show it works. And I didn't have the skill set that, like Mugdha mentioned, of working at many organizations. So I took it on a wing and a prayer. And that's literally what's held me today, is the wing and the prayer and the faith in myself. And of course, the great mentorship that I got, not only from the BMN faculty, but everybody around me, my family. Like, if you don't ask, you don't get. So my family, friends, I got mentors in the business. I've been to our own competitors and I've asked questions. So that's it was a very nervous time. It always is. When you start something new, it is, but you have to start.
Yeah.
So
that's very true.
Yeah.
Mugdha, I'm very interested in what you have to share. I could hear you giggling, you know.
Yeah.
Background.
The is there always, right? It's like, and it's there at every stage. So I'll tell you, like, what happened with me, and I so much respect for you, Kajal, that you are doing this the way you're doing. It's incredible. In my case, what happened was I was raised in a different generation, right? So it was all about like being married, and you know, it was all about the spouse's well-being, like very much like what you said about your mom, right? So a job was okay because it was defined timings and it was never really your thing. But when I started dreaming of wanting to do something on my own, then that started becoming an issue, right? So I had to walk out of my marriage. So I mean, I got divorced in 2006, 2017. I really had to choose between leading a life that I deserved and I knew that would be of value. So what was happening that in the marriage was like my life was all about just serving my spouse and my child. And I knew I could offer so much to the world, right? Like 1 million people versus 2 people. And that just was not resonating. So I had to make that choice that if I really wanted to fulfill my entrepreneurial ambitions, what was it that I was willing to let go of? And the fear there, I cannot even describe, because my family did not support me. My dad nearly disowned me because a divorced daughter is like the biggest black label you could have, right, as a parent. So I was ostracized by my entire family. It was terrible. It was really bad. But that fear, like there was no money. I went broke in the beginning. My friends like Uma and Meera, they literally transferred money into my account and they supported me, right? Like that first 6-month phase when I just left everything in Toronto and came back to India. So fear was there, right? But from that fear, now there are different fears, because now it's about having a team and being able to pay their salaries on time. And so the challenge always is there. As an entrepreneur, you'll never be you'll literally never be free of those challenges, right? And that, I think, is what is part of an entrepreneur's DNA, that you should be willing to live with uncertainty and grow from that, right? Because the kind of learning that comes from that is indescribable. You become so much stronger, right? So every phase you just grow from strength to strength. And I think that's why everyone should become an entrepreneur. Like, forget the profits, forget the balance sheets, forget the fame and the success, and forget the TED Talks. But what it does to you as a person, I can't even, like, it's very hard to put it in words and articulate it. Like, the kind of strength, the Hindi word for that is jigar. Like, you get jigar, right? Like,
Yeah.
you
I hear you. I hear you,
Yeah.
Mugdha.
yeah. So, you throw anything at me now, I'm like, yeah, been there, done that, like, doesn't matter. Like, okay, so show me something bigger, kind of a thing. So that fear will always be there. You just get, like, exposed to bigger and bigger challenges, and it makes you grow. It pushes you to grow. So you have to be up for that. And that's the best part about, like, you wouldn't even want to go to a party. You wouldn't even, like, you wouldn't need any other stimulant except your business and the challenges that come to you. But yeah,
Awesome. I mean, it's great listening to you. I mean, hearing you out and your experience. I mean, it's. I don't have words how to express. It was lovely to hear what you had to say. I want to focus on one point here. Like you said, your friends helped you out. So let's come to that point. How did you manage the funding, and how did you take it ahead? How did you manage what profits came in, how much to charge, or how to begin actually enterprising your entrepreneurship, trying to understand whether it's making whether you can make a living out of it. It's a very important aspect and a very critical one, which I'm sure everyone here has questions about. So can you share something about that?
Yeah, I'll go first. So, see, money is very important because that's the fuel that runs your passion to be an entrepreneur, right? And I'll just take you through how I went through it. Like I said, when I walked out of my marriage and came back to India, I was still figuring out how can I package my services and offer it to somebody. So, and then my health itself had taken a complete nosedive, right? So, which is why I had to learn functional nutrition to kind of save my life. So that at that point, I wasn't even of value to anybody else because I was just focusing on myself. That's when I was completely broke, and that's when my friends bailed me out. But the minute I knew I had enough knowledge to serve somebody else, the people who needed my help started appearing. Like, they just started coming. And at that time, so my journey is interesting, right? So at that time, I was like charging people 2,500 for a month of like being able to do their functional nutrition coaching, like looking at the root cause analysis and all that, versus where we are now as a company. We charge 40,000 rupees for a 3-month program. And that journey, so that
which is actually quite reasonable, Mugdha, if you go to see.
Yeah, so we want to keep it accessible. We don't want to be like celebrity nutritionists, that only the top of the top can, because so like everybody is sick, right? Like, chronic disease is the biggest epidemic that's happening. So we want to keep it accessible while ensuring the value for our services is not diluted. So what I have done in terms of raising the pricing is I have seen like what is it that the market responds to. So that is something that you have to look at a little like analytically. So you have to know what is the value that you're not willing to compromise on, right? What is your time worth versus what is the market ready for? And that's where it takes a little bit of work. So that's the pricing itself of the program. And you can't start off by charging, let's say, 10,000 a month. You have to believe that you're capable of offering services worth that much. And that, like I said, each person learns that curve through their own. Like, I can't come and tell somebody else that this is how much you should be charging for your business unless I get to see like their data, the kind of work they've done and all of that. In terms of funding, after the initial broke phase, when I started actually charging for my services, I was pretty sustaining, right? So I never needed to borrow any money from anyone once I started offering my services. And I was, so in the startup world, that's called bootstrap. Like, you're just running with the money that you started off initially, and your company's paying for itself. So until December 2019, I was bootstrapped, and like I said, in October, not December 2019, this is 2020, right? Yeah, so 2018 um, is when the vision for 1 million people came, and I realized I couldn't make that vision happen with my bootstrap model, right? I would need funds to invest in hiring a team, to have an office, to hire a marketing agency, and all of that. And that's when I began having discussions around funding and the typical startup angel investor kind of a funding round. So I received funding for Thrive in March 2019, and that's what has enabled me to kind of hire a team and grow the business, because on my own, without receiving that funding, it would have been very difficult to do that. So when you
That's
really want to
amazing.
grow the business, I think an infusion of funds just makes your journey a little easier, because then you can make sure you're hiring the best people. You can make sure you're not compromising on quality. You can make sure you're not you're having the right systems and processes in place. So there is a time to take external funds, but I would say in the beginning, make sure you are able to bootstrap yourself, because if nobody is buying what you're selling, then you don't really have a business.
Mhm. Kajal, how was your experience?
So my consulting firm is still bootstrapped. It's been almost an eight-year-old company, and I didn't want to grow in scale because I realized that the value of the service was basically where people wanted me to be their nutritional, counselor, and that was what was giving me absolute bang for the buck in terms of the pricing, which is quite high. That I kept it from the start because I was me and I had an assistant, and that's the only way I wanted to retain it. And the top corporates approached me, and I was pitching a price that was quite astronomical at those times when I started 10 years ago. That was just a value for my time, and I knew I was delivering on my results. So I had no qualms. Once I knew that I had those 100 people, that I was ready to charge more. And of course, it's not published because it is still a boutique consultancy. The other one where I got the product in, I knew that in India, I didn't want to stay a mom and pop brand. I knew that I needed for this product to be accessible to homes, to people where they are not necessarily looking for it at a high-end store or just online on one or two platforms. Just like any other brand out there which is run by a man, I felt equally competent, especially with us doing our nutritional background and health being the sector interaction. I saw that there was a need, there was a demand, but there were the finance guys who were taking both seats. So that made me understand, and because I have taken a lot of mentorship in my life from various people, including the teachers at BMN. Always till today, I don't hesitate to pick up the phone and trouble Mala ma'am or Anu ma'am.
I think that's the best part of belonging to BMN. I think that's the best part.
You know what? I have always said this, and I say it very unequivocally to all around me, that has been a transformative period in my life when I joined BMN, and the support that I got. Otherwise, I would have not been here doing what I am. But definitely the quality of the care, more than the teaching could be whatever is in the curriculum or beyond, but it was just the care that was given, and that I chose to take from the college. Not only necessary, it's also what you want out of things. So I tried to maximize what I wanted and make the most of it, including great friends that I still have kept from college times. But coming back to the investment part, I knew that I had to get the funds in. So before that, for a year, I actually worked with my own products, completely bootstrapped, found out if there were buyers for it. I actually requested my husband to also finance the first 6 months, and he did. But I was quite in a hurry to be able to say that hey, now from next year onwards in my business plan, I'm not going to look at home finance. I'm going to bring it from somewhere else. So there are many aspects of investments of funding that happens, and I quickly want to put it out here. There is the angel network. First of all, there's a friends and family, okay, and one can always reach out to them. I reached out to my husband because he was quite supportive of he saw the dedication and the discipline that I had in the work. So he was happy to help me for the first few years, but I said, okay, let's keep it for 6 months. I made a 3-year business plan, and I made sure that I was on a month-on-month basis managing my deliverables by and large to the dot of the number. And I hustled a lot. When I say hustle, it's not a negative word. I meant it in a positive way, where I made sure that I was doing the sales myself. I was out there with the products, out there on in many shows, at many events, making sure that people love the product. And if not, why? I made a lot of mistakes. There were failures. I completely kept working on it. And then when I was completely aligned that now I want to do the investment, I mean, now that the company is set, the product is set, the team is set, that is when I went in for the investment, because bringing funds is actually, girls, the easiest thing. There's so much of capital in India coming from overseas, and even amongst Indians ourselves, right? We are a huge population. If you look at the high net worth individuals, there's a lot of money that they want to invest in startups. But are we, the right people? Do we have the right background, the right discipline? Are we making the right choices? Do we have ready blueprints of what we look at for our vision? So obviously, I didn't have that, and that's where the nervousness comes in, Vinisha. And that's why I reached out to many in the business, right from a CA to I used to pick my husband's head. I used to pick my brother's mind all the time, and made sure that the company was set as a platform. It had achieved certain scale. And then there is the group of investors. You have either the friends and family. You can go to HNIs, which is the high net worth individuals who are also looking for funds to deploy. There's investors in terms of venture capital or private equity. And in my discussions, what happened is I got invested in by a venture capital, which is a much higher advanced form of funding. Which happens only when you have achieved a certain kind of scale. I was just lucky to find the right investors. I also want to put a disclaimer here for everyone that just finding funds, it's very important to find the right partners. They have to be aligned with your vision. Otherwise it's a pain. It's a pain to find the wrong investors, because you'll only be under pressure. You'll always be worried about delivering, and you won't enjoy. The whole point of this is to enjoy the experience of being your own boss. If that's not what it is, then it's great to be a professional at another top-notch professional at another company, and I would easily do that. But and that's positive pressure. The positive pressure is good. That's great. But it's very important to find aligned investors, or to write down on a piece of paper what kind of investor or funding are you looking for. Are you ready to give equity in your company? Are you ready to? So I gave a stake in exchange for some amount of capital that came into the company. And that stake was a minority stake because I still wanted to be the business owner. So Vinisha, there are many paradigms, I mean, all of you are free to reach out to me to understand it. The power of negotiation is very key in this. And I feel women are naturally great negotiators. And in a boardroom, I have never felt uncomfortable. I have always been anchored to state my point. Sometimes when I've made mistakes or even failures, I have no qualms in saying that what it is, because all of us are on a learning journey, including our investors. Even they are learning the curve with us. So that's where I want to end. I know I've stretched this part, but it's very important to share about funding because it's very attractive.
It's very, yes, it's very enlightening, and really, both of you, whatever you guys shared today, it's extremely enriching, and I'm sure it's been beneficial to all our listeners here out there.
Anisha, I'd like to add another perspective to this funding thing, right? So what happened with me was, one of my clients, who is a high net worth individual, decided to fund in the company because he saw how amazing the work was. But unlike Kajal, I was like, oh my God, somebody wants to fund my dream, like le lo jo bhi lena hai, right? So I was withdrawing so much in exchange for not like, I mean, yes, the funds were important. They were a big amount. It's given Thrive the ability to do what we're going to do over the next 3 years. I had to make all the 3-year plans and everything. But what happened with me is, if I had not had the right mentors, I would have given away a larger part of the company than I should have. And like what Kajal, so this person is amazing. He's obviously done the work with me, so he understands the vision. So there is in no way a misalignment in terms of values. We know the growth is going to be slow because this is something that's not, it's a service, it's not a product, right? Yeah. But if I had not had the two people who kind of grounded me and said that, hey, it's your business, don't give away so much, I would have actually given. And I think that's something that, see, while women are great negotiators, somewhere there, like sometimes there is this deep feeling of I need to overcompensate for what is being given to me, right?
Yeah, I think that's where the fear comes in.
Yeah. So I was doing, like, I was like, if I don't say yes to everything, will I not receive the funds, right? So it's very important to have people in your life who are, the devil's advocate also for you, right? Like, they will show you the things that you might not be aware about yourself. So with funding, for me, that was a very, very important lesson that I would have given away much more than I should have. And I think everybody here needs to be really aware of that particular pitfall, that just because somebody is agreeing to something that you're dreaming of, don't.
I have so many questions flowing in right now that I want to ask you, regarding these aspects, about the funding and how, furthermore, your peers and stuff.
Another aspect I quickly want to join and honor is my the colleague.
Yeah, we're running very short of time. So let's take a minute and please continue what you're saying, but let's just give some time to answer some questions as well.
I just wanted to add the aspect of where women are finding challenges to bring another founder in place, or even have somebody come in who can help them with the business. I am lucky to have Ila Pathak, who's here on this chat, and she has been supporting me while I'm running 2 startups. So it's also important that if you don't find this, you'll also can find a co-founder, so it works. I just want to end here.
Yes. So let's quickly open up. We're really short of time, so we'll just quickly open up to questions. If anybody has any questions, you all can raise a hand there. I'm having a quick look if we have any questions coming in. I think we have some questions here. I think people are overwhelmed with what we've been speaking about.
Yeah, I think so. If there are no questions now, there's one more aspect to running your business, is knowing where you fail. Okay, so for example, like I knew how to do basic design, right? So in terms of my own marketing at my level, I could do it, but I suck at operations. I'm really horrible. Like even in getting us organized here for our webinar, in terms of follow through, or like just making sure the system is running well, is not something I'm naturally good at. I'm very creative, I'm very service oriented, and I learn very fast, but operations is something that I'm very bad at. So I knew that for me to actually scale this up, I needed somebody who's very good at operations. So knowing what you suck at is very important, so that you can hire the right kind of people to support your business. Because if you think you're amazing at everything, you're not going to be able to really create a well functioning team. So knowing who your first hire should be, knowing who your first partner should be, knowing what are the kind of skills you want in your co-founder, because there's no point in hiring another clone of yourself. Then what is the other person there for, right? So that's another important aspect of running a business, like knowing what is the skill that you need to hire for that will grow the business and that will support you in the things that you're not able to do.
I agree, Mugdha, completely on that. Venetia? Did Venetia run away?
No, I'm here. I'm very much here. I'm not running away. And I'm
just hearing us in a monologue.
Yeah.
Sorry?
Hearing us in a monologue, I think it's been.
No, I really wanted to hear you guys speak, and it's been an amazing, journey with you guys in the last 1 hour. It's really very, very enriching and enlightening, and I also, can relate to a lot of things that you all said. So it has been very beautiful for me to hear it from you guys, and making me feel that I'm not the only one. So it's been immensely pleasurable to have you guys here, and perhaps maybe we can have another session later on for further more details. There are so many questions I still feel that we will have, and I think we'll be having it pouring in after the session once we close down. So
yeah,
I'd like to say thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you from me and from BMN. It's been an amazing learning today, and thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. It's been
Thank
great.
Thanks
for everything.
Yeah, people don't know the glitches that happened earlier in the day. I would go through the technology and the internet. But thank you so much for pushing through and making sure that we actually got in at 4 o'clock. And really thanks to the teachers that we did it today. So I'm looking forward to actually being of more value to college, because I can't explain how much college has given me. Some lifelong friends and like just that self-confidence, right? So whatever it is I can do to give back, I will be there.
Yes, I'm curious to also know what's the next session going to look like, Venetia. Keep us updated.
Yes.
And
Venetia, can I ask a question? Can I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I have you online.
So in fact, I had asked the question, so I thought you did not read that. So my question to both of them is that any entrepreneur will have a low. So today, Kajal's 80/20 might be selling like hotcakes, but there will be one day when it's not going to be in the market, and probably people will be very bored of that product. So what are your strategies to keep you floating?
So, ma'am, one of the strategies. So thank you, ma'am, for asking that. In fact, you've just touched a raw point, or a raw nerve rather, because I did go through a low when people didn't understand the word 80/20 of my brand, which I had started earlier. It means a lot. It means a lifestyle, and very well aligned to the healthy principles. But a lot of customers out there on the street didn't understand it, and we went back to the customer. And we actually pivoted the brand to Plant Power, which is actually the essence of the brand. And Plant Power means simply a plant-based product, which is the essence of and the soul of the product. So yes, that low was there in my life, and even with my team, because we were very passionate about it. But the audience didn't understand plant-based nutrition or lifestyle, and they said, doesn't matter if we buy with a preservative, without whether it's got whey or whether it's got something else in it. Or even a chemical in it, it doesn't matter. And we had to completely educate the audience time and again. So we have gone from bars to cookies to protein powders, plant protein powders. We sell, coated plant protein nuts. We sell plant protein chibra now. So we have done a lot of pivoting. And unless you go through that low, I hear Mugdha also sharing the same. There is highs and lows. Unless you go through that low, which is actually miserable at that point of time, you don't get to another high, or you don't get to a stable phase for the company. And that's what we actually are at right now, because the product is selling extremely well online and offline. And in fact, we are one of the top plant-based protein brands in the country now. But I have been through many lows, ma'am. And every time I have been through a low, I have not given up. I have made sure that I've been persistent, because I think one of the principles of leadership that I have learned from my mentors is not to give up at the last minute. You know, we just give up. We're just about to touch that other level and we give up, you know. So I'm very persistent, and I have made myself very, very emotionally stable, so that I don't take that loss so personally. Failures are a part of life. They help you grow. That's the way I look at it, ma'am.
Thank you.
Beautifully said, Kajal, like really. And I've experienced lows as well, right? So for me, every low pivot. It's like the environment is telling you what is really wrong, learn from that and make a change. Because if you don't adapt and change, then you're not going to grow. So like Kajal said, every failure, every low point is just a catalyst. It's like a melting pot, right? Like, so you're sitting there and you're like in that low and everything is like pulling you down. You just use that to kind of propel
So
yourself.
Mugdha, I want to ask a question to you rather. We talked about the products, but in your line, what I saw was there are clients who are not very happy with you sometimes. Okay. There are 90% might be very happy, but there will be those 10% who will come up with their own ideas, saying that you talk trash to me. So how do you deal with such people who don't look at your belief or belief in, because you have set the standard there. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So so this initially it was a problem, because for me, first it was like, anybody who's ready to pay me, let me start with them, right? So the first absolute 3-4 months. Then I realized I didn't want to really work with everybody. There was a certain category of people who would really do well with my coaching and with the recommendations I was making. So what I did was I made that profile of who are the people I want to work with, and they had to pass through that filter, like, is this somebody I want to partner with? And I made a ironclad terms and conditions which they had to sign off on before they agreed to even pay me. Like, even before I could take their money, I would make them sign off on those terms and conditions. What those terms and conditions essentially did was it set the standard for how we wanted to communicate, what were the expectations from them, what was the commitment and discipline required from them, and what is it that I was going to offer them. And I have seen that putting that in place has really helped maintain the output or the outcome of what happens through the 3-month journey. I'm not saying there are people who will always stick to it, but because these terms are communicated before, if at some point of time, if they feel that, oh, this is not working for me, then it's very easy to show them why it is not working, because this is where their part of the agreement is not being fulfilled. So for me, setting standards, setting expectations at the beginning of the journey itself has helped maintain that kind of sanity through the process. But
thank you, Mugdha.
Sorry?
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you
Vinisha?
still continuing?
Vinisha?
That's Mala ma'am joining us. Yes, Mala ma'am.
Yes.
Yeah. Vinisha, I think that one of the things on this platform that you're using, maybe why you're not getting questions, is there is no possibility for adding the chat here. So it's possible that maybe if you could give an email or something, students can back.
There are a lot of questions that came in after. There are a lot of questions that came in later on. Once I checked, after that I can see a lot of questions pouring in even right now.
Okay. Because the thing is that icon for adding the questions keeps coming and going. So if girls have kind of worked that out, then that's great. So wonderful, articulate presentation by the 3 of you. Hats off to you. It's wonderful to see how you've developed, how you've grown. And we are looking forward to having you as mentors for the students to take this ahead. You have a lot of ideas of getting more alumni to come and talk about their personal journeys, their experiences. And as we've mentioned earlier, This comes under the banner of the Employability, Entrepreneurship and Career Hub of Dr. BMN. And the whole objective of this hub is to give as many inputs as we can to present as well as to alumni, get them going on a wonderful journey of entrepreneurship, but also giving them guidance for future career paths. So once again, I'm thanking all three of you for getting this going, and I hope that this is just the first of many such initiatives. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.